In the depths of the countryside, where the darkness holds sway and the silence is broken only by the whispers of the night wind, lies Midnight Road, a stretch of asphalt shrouded in mystery and fear. Legend has it that Midnight Road is cursed, a place where the veil between the living and the dead grows thin, and the spirits of the past roam free. Tales of ghostly encounters and unexplained phenomena have made this desolate highway a place of dread, where even the bravest travelers fear to tread. It was on a moonless night, with the stars hidden behind a blanket of thick clouds, that I found myself driving along the infamous Midnight Road. The road stretched out before me like a dark ribbon, disappearing into the depths of the forest that lined its edges. As I drove, a sense of unease settled over me, a feeling that I was not alone on this lonely stretch of road. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, and strange noises echoed through the darkness, sending shivers down my spine. Suddenly, the headlights of my car illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road, a spectral apparition bathed in an eerie blue light. My heart pounded in my chest as I slammed on the brakes, my car skidding to a halt just inches from the ghostly form. But as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving me alone on the deserted highway. Trembling, I climbed out of my car and peered into the darkness, searching for any sign of the mysterious presence that had crossed my path. As I stood there, the silence of the night was shattered by the sound of distant footsteps, a slow, steady rhythm that seemed to draw closer with each passing moment. Panic gripped me as I realized that I was not alone on Midnight Road, and that whatever lurked in the shadows was coming for me. With trembling hands, I fumbled for the keys to my car, desperate to escape the looming threat that haunted the night. But as I turned to flee, a cold hand closed around my wrist, its touch like ice against my skin. I froze in terror as a voice whispered in my ear. A voice from beyond the grave, filled with sorrow and longing. "Beware the darkness," it murmured, its words sending a chill down my spine. "For once you enter, there is no escape." With a cry of fear, I wrenched myself free from the ghostly grip and sprinted back to my car, my heart racing with terror. Ignoring the pounding in my chest, I slammed the door shut and peeled out onto Midnight Road, leaving behind the horrors of the night far behind me. But as I drove, the memory of that fateful encounter burned brightly in my mind, refusing to be ignored. I could still feel the icy grip of the ghostly hand on my wrist, hear the whispered warnings echoing in my ears. And though I tried to convince myself that it had all been a trick of the imagination, a part of me knew that Midnight Road held secrets far darker than I could ever imagine. As the miles stretched on, the darkness seemed to close in around me, suffocating me with its weight. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, and strange noises echoed through the night, sending shivers down my spine. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease that gripped me, to focus on the road ahead and put the horrors of Midnight Road behind me. But no matter how hard I tried, I could not escape the feeling that something was watching me, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the night wore on, I began to feel the first stirrings of exhaustion creeping over me. My eyelids grew heavy, and my thoughts became muddled with fatigue. I knew that I needed to find a place to rest, to escape the darkness that threatened to consume me. But as I scanned the desolate landscape for a sign of civilization, I realized with a sinking feeling that there was no escape from Midnight Road. The forest stretched out on either side of the highway, its depths shrouded in darkness and mystery. With a sense of resignation, I continued to drive, the miles ticking by in a blur of darkness and despair. I tried to push aside the fear that gnawed at my insides, to focus on the task at hand and keep moving forward. But as the night wore on, my resolve began to waver, and the shadows seemed to grow darker with each passing moment. I could feel the presence of something sinister lurking just beyond the edge of my vision, its malevolent gaze fixed upon me with unblinking intensity. With a sense of growing dread, I realized that I was not alone on Midnight Road, that something far more sinister than I could ever imagine was hunting me, its hunger for my soul driving it ever closer with each passing moment. As the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, I knew that I had to find a way to escape Midnight Road, to break free from its suffocating grip before it was too late. With every ounce of strength that remained within me, I pushed my foot down on the accelerator and sped into the growing light, praying that I would find salvation before the darkness consumed me whole. And though I may have escaped with my life, I knew that the horrors of Midnight Road would haunt me forevermore, a shadow that would follow me wherever I went. For in the heart of the darkness, where the spirits of the past roam free and the veil between the living and the dead grows thin, there can be no escape from the horrors that lurk within. The night was thick with darkness, as I found myself in the role of the designated driver among my group of friends, Michael, Eddie, and Daniela. Living in the remote countryside meant our journeys to bars or parties involved traversing long, winding roads, devoid of streetlights, save for the occasional flicker of a distant house amidst the vast forest. Our return trip from town, where the bars beckoned with their neon allure, took us along the desolate 513 highway. Daniela's urgent need to relieve herself interrupted our journey, her drunken pleas punctuating the quiet of the night. As her distress escalated, mingling with my own burgeoning discomfort, I made the decision to pull over. With Daniela disappearing into the crops on one side of the road and me seeking solace in the woods on the other, Eddie and Michael remained ensconced in their own inebriated revelry. Time stretched on, and the absence of Daniela's return began to gnaw at my nerves. Venturing out once more, I called out into the night, my voice swallowed by the darkness. Reluctantly, I enlisted Michael's reluctant aid, his laughter echoing through the silent night as we plunged into the overgrown crops. The rustling of leaves and the sound of our footsteps merged with the eerie laughter, creating a disconcerting cacophony that set my heart pounding. Amidst the oppressive darkness, a whisper of unease crept over me, halting Michael in his tracks. Straining to pierce the shadows, we pressed onward, guided only by the feeble beam of our flashlight. It was then, in a narrow clearing, that we encountered a figure. A stranger, their features obscured by the dim light. A surge of primal fear propelled me into flight, my feet carrying me back to the safety of the car in a blur of panic. Ignoring Eddie's slumbering form, I sounded the horn, a desperate plea for help echoing into the night. Relief flooded through me as Michael emerged from the darkness, dragging Daniela's unconscious body in his wake. The sight of her battered form sent shock waves through me, her limp figure a stark reminder of the dangers lurking in the darkness. With trembling hands, we bundled her into the car, my mind reeling with the implications of what had transpired. The drive to the nearest hospital was a blur of panic and confusion, our thoughts consumed by fear for Daniela's well-being. As she lay unconscious, her forehead marred by a vicious wound, Michael's revelation sent shivers down my spine. A shadowy figure lurking in the night, unseen and unknown. In the sterile confines of the hospital, as Daniela drifted in and out of consciousness, the full weight of our ordeal settled upon us. Who was the mysterious assailant, and what dark intentions had led them to prey upon us in the dead of night? In the days that followed, our lives were consumed by fear and uncertainty. The memory of that fateful night casting a long shadow over our once carefree existence. With each passing day, Daniela's recovery became a beacon of hope amidst the darkness, her resilience a testament to the strength of the human spirit. As we grappled with the aftermath of our ordeal, we vowed to never again underestimate the dangers that lurked in the night. Together we would navigate the shadows, united in our determination to emerge stronger, braver, and more resilient than before. For in the darkness, amidst the whispers of fear and uncertainty, we found the strength to stand tall, to confront our deepest fears, and to emerge victorious in the face of adversity. And though the night may hold many secrets, we would face them together, armed with nothing but the light of friendship and the courage of our convictions. Shadow Road wound its way through the countryside, a desolate path cutting through fields and forests alike. It was a road with a reputation, known for its eerie silence and the strange occurrences that seemed to plague those who traveled its lonely stretches. One dark and stormy night, I found myself driving along Shadow Road, the rain pounding against the windshield and the wind howling through the trees. The storm had come out of nowhere, catching me off guard as I made my way home from a late-night shift at work. As I drove, my mind wandered to the stories I had heard about Shadow Road, the tales of ghostly hitchhikers and phantom figures that haunted its darkened lanes. I had always dismissed such stories as mere superstition, the product of overactive imaginations and too many late nights spent on the road. But as I rounded a bend in the road, my headlights illuminated a figure standing by the side of the highway, a woman, her clothes soaked through and her hair plastered to her face by the driving rain. My first instinct was to keep driving, to ignore the stranger and continue on my way. But something about the woman's demeanor gave me pause. There was a sadness in her eyes, a weariness that spoke of a long journey and a heavy burden. Against my better judgment, I pulled over and rolled down the window, the rain beating against the car as I called out to her. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the roar of the storm. The woman nodded, her expression grateful as she approached the car. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been walking for hours, and I don't know how much longer I can go on." Without a second thought, I unlocked the door and invited the woman inside, offering her a respite from the storm that raged outside. As she settled into the passenger seat, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease creeping over me, an irrational fear that I couldn't quite shake. As we drove, the woman told me her story, a tale of loss and heartache, of a love lost and a life left behind. Her words were tinged with sadness, and I found myself drawn to her despite my misgivings. But as we neared the end of Shadow Road, the woman grew quiet, her gaze fixed on something in the distance. I followed her gaze and saw a figure standing in the middle of the road. A man, his features obscured by the darkness, as he stared back at us with eyes that seemed to pierce the night. Without warning, the woman let out a scream of terror, her voice echoing through the car as she pointed at the figure in the road. "He's here!" she cried, her hands trembling as she reached for the door handle. In a panic, I slammed on the brakes and brought the car to a screeching halt, my heart pounding in my chest as I stared at the figure in the road. But when I looked again, the man was gone, vanished into the darkness without a trace. Shaken, but determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, I turned to the woman and demanded answers. Who was the man in the road, and why was she so afraid of him? But the woman said nothing, her eyes wide with fear as she stared out into the night. And as I watched, she began to fade away before my eyes, her form dissolving into mist until there was nothing left but the empty seat beside me. In that moment, I knew the truth. The woman was not of this world, but a spirit trapped between the realms of the living and the dead. And as I drove on into the night, the echoes of her scream ringing in my ears, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets Shadow Road held, and what horrors awaited those who dared to travel its haunted lanes.